Welcome back, and another talking technical. And I mean, we've got such an interesting world that we live in. I mean, it's Russia and the Ukraine, and Europe is having energy problems. South Africa's been in energy problems for a long time already, and maybe the world can learn from us. But there's one chart that I want to pick off tonight, and that is definitely the dollar index. I mean, the dollar is purely just destroying all currencies around the world. And this is a chart that I would like to show you. And the reason being is I think the whole world's markets evolve around this chart at the moment. Everything is around this chart. I mean, commodities are waiting for a move here. Markets are waiting for a move here. And while this chart is doing what it's doing, and maybe we must look at the weekly chart. That's maybe the best way in looking at it. Because if you look at it over the long term, let's just have a look here. Then you will see that it's a beautiful upward slope in the chart. It's almost like it's pulling back a little bit, and then it's starting to come up again, pulling back a little bit, then it goes up. And it's almost like the exact chart that we had with the S&P 500 Aussie in 2 years ago. What happened was those charts just ticked higher, nothing perturbed them, they just carried on, and everybody was just keen to sit on those charts and say, what we do is we buy any dip. Now this is what's happening now with the dollar index. The dollar index is actually telling you that the whole world at the moment is chasing a stronger dollar. Now this stronger dollar also makes that South Africa's rand is weakening, and there's not just one currency that's getting influenced by it, the whole world's currency. So I think it's just prudent to have a look at this chart and look at this strong trend line. There you are. I mean, that's the trend line just since the early 2022. If you go back, you can see it made a beautiful, and that's now a classic chart to actually do a little bit of a technical course in. Look at what it did was it gave us a beautiful rounding bottom. Now I like to usually, if I use a rounding bottom chart, I like to draw in these trend lines, and then the moment you see these trend lines or support lines in this case, you can see it built a wonderful base. Excuse me. Can you remember the period where the rand was so nice and strong and everybody said, but the rand can actually go a little bit stronger, and everybody was positive about the rand? In that period in time, the dollar index consolidated. It almost built a base, and look at it. There was the lower lows on the dollar index, then it consolidated for a while, and then it goes back and it chases to the top. That's the first thing that we want to see, that there's a beautiful rounding bottom in place here. There's another thing that we can also say is what this chart teaches us, that you don't need to get in right at the bottom to make a few bob. You need to just see what the trend is. And while the trend is to the downside, just be a little bit cautious, and you'll usually find a place where it starts to consolidate a bit, unless the World Bank or the Federal Reserve comes in with quantitative easing like we did in 2020 on the COVID. It just gave us an ugly V reversal in markets, and few could catch that. Look at it. When it starts to turn up, it slowly but sure finds its way, and then it goes higher. So if we look at this chart, and everybody is looking at the rand and are surprised that the rand is weakened so much. Yes, we've got our problems in South Africa. We've got load shedding problems. We've got a government that's not responsible. What do we see here? We see that this trend is well in place to the top side. And what I say is then, where's my first sign that this trend will break? It will definitely not be that little bit there. That is too early. I will say the first sign will be that level there. And that will be, why do I say that? Because the chart has shown us over a long period of time that it actually builds a base, then it goes up. So for me, the first sign of weakness in the dollar index will be below 1.08. While that's carrying on, forget about it, the rand will not strengthen. That's the bottom line. I got a request for Steunhoff. Now, Steunhoff is one of those companies, you can remember, that was a brilliant company. Everybody was involved with it. It made wonderful money. And then that scandal developed there and it opened up and it's still on the go. I wonder if it will ever be resolved. I don't know. But I think at the moment it is only the big legal giants that making money there. But if I look at this chart, and I want to say to the viewer, there is just no proper turnaround here. Look at it. This is a weekly chart, lower lows all the way. Momentum is clearly to the downside. And why do you want to chase it if you're not sure? We just spoke about the dollar index. We saw that what did we do here? It made a beautiful rounding bottom in Steunhoff in 2020. Then it gave us a beautiful rally. But what do we see now? We see that the chart is flirting with a previous low. There you are. And remember, this is once, of course, a weekly chart because I think the viewer wants a longer term view on the chart. So what do we say? While it's below this level, and that is 194, the momentum is clearly to the downside. Only above 194, and remember, on a weekly close, we can envisage that this chart will probably turn around. So what do you do if you are a long-term investor? If you don't want to wait for the consolidation, that's the wisest thing to do. If you believe in the company and you believe that things will turn around, buy above 194 on a weekly close. If you are a long-term investor, make use of a stop loss of 175. And where's my targets? My targets will be 210, 217, 226, and even maybe as high as 245. That is a wonderful return. I must say to you, I think with Steunhoff, it's maybe wise to stick to your stop loss. If you're wrong, maybe cut your losses. And I just had a wonderful chat with a friend of mine the other day, and he said he's sticking all the years to a rule. And he says he looks at the candles, he looks at support lines, he believes in them, and he believes that they are 100% correct. What he says is, he says that he always use a 3% stop loss strategy. He says if he's wrong and it's a 3% cut, he just cut his position and say, listen, I am wrong. I maybe need to sit on the sideline and wait for something else. Let us look at Jubilee. Once again, long-term chart. And the reason why I would like to stick to long-term charts for a while is simply because the markets are very unsure. And we are not sure where's the bottom in these markets. And these markets can maybe surprise us for quite a while longer to the downside. We were nervous about the markets before, I think last year, and everybody thought that we're crazy. Everybody believed that the markets can just go higher. Well, 2022 showed us that the markets can go lower and shares can also go lower. Well, first of all, if I look at Jubilee here, and I've looked at this resistance line, it tells me that the momentum is clearly to the downside. There you are. You can see it has not reached this line, and that's sitting at 270. And while this line is a resistance, it is definitely a resistance line. And that means, what is a resistance line? It means every time that it gets there, the share actually rejects this line. Look at it. It bounces against it, it comes back. It gets there, it comes back. Same thing all the way through. But on the other hand, there's always some good news as well. There you are. If you look at this chart, we're working on maybe a falling wedge. Now, a falling wedge, we know by now, is a positive formation. When will it be a positive formation? Not at the bottom, not in the middle, but at the top when it breaks, and that is at 270. When it breaks 270, you can believe that the share can maybe turn around and it can maybe give us a wonderful bounce from there. But only buy above 270. I will not make use of a stop loss of around 229. I think that's maybe a little bit too big. I will probably use that little line there. Maybe I can just show you here. I would rather use that as my stop loss. There's my line. Just to play safe, I will use a line of, not a line, a level of 256 to protect my capital. I mean, if it breaks 270, where can it go to? Let's use that little line as well to give us some guidance. If you project it to the top, there you are. and if you project it, there you are. It can go from 270 to 341, and I mean that will make a lot of investors very, very, very happy, because Jubilee, can you believe it, since April 2021, it was at the high of 398 and it lost momentum all the way down to the downside. And in that period, commodity prices were reasonably strong. I mean, the platinum price did come back some from its highs, and the rand weakened that it should support it. It did not. Remember, I've always said that before, and I've learned that through the years. If the tide goes out, your share will struggle to go against the tide. Let us look at Billiton. Well, Billiton gave us, I can remember a few weeks ago, we discussed it. We showed this trend line. I just want to get that quickly. I think it was also a falling wedge that we showed. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think so. There's the falling wedge. It gave us this beautiful rally from there. It paid out to the full. Look what it happened. It broke 448, went up to that level. But now I'm a little bit nervous. I think that if I look at Billiton Group here, look what we see here. We see a tiny little head and shoulder formation. The neckline is sitting at 493.20. I'll be very nervous just to buy it, because although it's a little bit above that right shoulder, that makes me positive. Below, above that neckline, you've got still a little bit of hope. Where will I buy it? I would rather buy it if this line there turns into a support. Then I know that we've got a trend line change here and a trend change. Then that will be, I will only buy above 502.38. Above 502.38 I will buy, but where's my stop loss? I will use my stop loss as 457.98, and my target maybe will be 533.11. Well, thank you for watching the show. Visit our website www.fransdeklerk.com for more info, and we will chat again.